Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Kay Cote, and I am your podcast host here at Action Coach in Central Texas. And today on the show, we have Micah Green, founder and CEO of Tailos. We're going to be sharing all about Micah's business, his journey to business ownership, some challenges and best practices that he's learned along the way as well. So, we're going to give you that inside scoop to what it's like to own and operate a business. So, welcome to the show, Micah. It's so great to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Kay. Excited to be here and meet a fellow Austinite.
Yes, yes, it's so great. Well, I'd love to dive in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, for sure. So quick background about me. I grew up on the East Coast, born into an entrepreneurial family, and kind of caught the bug from an early age. Loved building some form of company, and then also had been building robots when I was really young. But ended up going to school for business and entrepreneurship with a focus in hospitality and hospitality management. And that was kind of my exposure into the industry and operations, and literally had to work as a housekeeper in a hotel, and had an aha moment when I was working as one, realizing they were doing the same thing for 50, 60, 70 years. It was a pretty, stagnant system and process. And everyone kept talking about the labor crisis that's hitting the industry. So there's 2 million open positions right now in the US alone, and the turnover rate's over 140%. So when I heard those stats, I realized there's a huge opportunity to bring robots into the space, not just in hospitality, but in commercial real estate as a whole. So Talos is a company that's building machines that work so humans can live. And our first step towards a fully connected ecosystem of robots is Rosie, which is a robot vacuum for hotels, multifamily, senior living, office space, you name it. And the robot also collects data too.
That is so cool. Now, I have to ask, was the name Rosie inspired by the Jetsons robot?
Yes, absolutely was. There were reruns on, so I wasn't maybe the original audience, but I would watch the reruns and thought it was the coolest thing ever, and love things like Star Trek and Star Wars and some of that futuristic stuff. So yes, Rosie from the Jetsons is a big inspiration, and I think one day, just like everyone has a smartphone, everybody's going to have a smart robot.
I definitely know I would love one. I would love a Rosie around my house. So this is super cool. Well, I'm excited to dive in to learn more about you and your company. So currently, like how big are you? Do you have employees? And if so, how many?
Yeah, for sure. So we're a fast-growing company. We have about 1,000 robots deployed, about 35 team members, FTEs, and mainly in Austin. We're based in Austin, Texas, and then we have some that are working remote and some contractors we work with as well.
Oh, wonderful. That's super exciting to know too. And what's your role look like as the CEO? What's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, it's a good question because it changes all the time, and my calendar is a bit overwhelming to look at. But I'd say my responsibilities, I tend to focus on the sales side. So, I mean, selling the vision in the context of sales and the product, of course, selling the vision in the context of fundraising as well. In terms of hiring people, making sure we hire and have the best people on the team, whether it's engineering or sales or customer success or anything within the team. Those are kind of the three main buckets. And of course, supporting the team with whatever gets in the way and helping solve problems and put out fires as much as needed. So,
Putting out fires is definitely one of those hats that the CEO wears, that's for sure.
yeah, yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
well, I'd like to learn more about your ideal customer or client. Like you mentioned a little bit about, hospitality and commercial real estate and or commercial brands and things like that. But what are you looking for in an ideal client?
Yeah, for sure. So we've thought a lot about this recently and have learned a lot because there's kind of the high level of what type of property, for example, because we're doing commercial real estate and things like that, but also the personas within it. So I'd say in terms of like the high level piece, we build commercial real estate robots, and they're focusing on cleaning for now, and eventually we'll get into other areas. Our bread and butter has been hospitality, casinos, resorts. But we've also deployed into apartment buildings, so multifamily, as well as senior living. We're testing in office space and even airports too. So the market potential is massive, but we want to stay focused and not drown in that opportunity. So I'd say it was those first three that I mentioned that are kind of the key buckets. And then we like to look for portfolios that have a bunch of properties. So whether they own or manage the real estate or both. And really going into the persona side of it, I tend to work with groups or individuals that are the SVP of Ops or the VP of Ops or the COO, who are more operations focused. And we like to work with people who, are kind of on the cutting edge and who are willing to take that journey. I'd say the product and product market fit is in a very different state today than call it 3 years ago. But people that I'd say the simple way of looking at it is when they ask the question of how do we make this work instead of will this work, right? And like understanding it's that partnership and you're going to need to change operations and there's change management involved and we can support that and we have best practices, but people that really understand that and are willing to take that journey with us, and we try and vet that through qualifying questions. So that's more of the kind of persona side of things, and then from there it's kind of snowballed and grown a lot in terms of who we're working with today.
Definitely. Now, what would you say the vision of the company is like long term? Would you like these robots to like 100% replace like human activity within like the cleaning services of a hospitality property, or more like in tandem with human work? Like how, like what's your ultimate vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So to address kind of that comment for head on, there's huge vacancies in the industry. So a lot of people say like, oh, you're replacing jobs, you're replacing people. Well, there's millions of open positions right now. So it's a
Mm,
question of how do you get that work done? How do you get it done efficiently? And how do you support the people that are there? So that's a big part of our focus and that core purpose of building technology that works so humans can live, right? And ultimately, like the vision is, a world where people can do what they love. I think a lot of people do what they need to survive, and that's a requirement today. I think in a combination of robotics that take on the dull, dirty, and dangerous, access to more education, even things like universal basic income, I think we can shift society where people can really focus on what they love and live sustainably. And for the company more specifically, so we talked about Rosie earlier. I definitely believe one day there's going to be a Rosie, and there's a ton of humanoid robots that are out there today. But a lot of humanoids tend to be, jack of all or a master of none.
mm,
Whereas kind of my philosophy and our philosophy at the company is focus and do one thing extremely well. So what that will mean is there's going to be this fully connected ecosystem of robots. And you can have a robot that focuses on vacuuming, scrubbing, window cleaning, delivery, security, basically any sort of tasks that are required within the commercial real estate. You'll have specific robots focused on those, and they'll
mhm.
work together and communicate together. They'll deploy each other. If a security robot notices a spill, it could send for Rosie to come clean it up, or vice versa. If a robot that is cleaning notices a backpack or something a little sketchy, it can send the security robot to go check it out and make sure things are all right. So that's a big part of the vision, is this like communication and this interplay between different use cases while leveraging that same kind of software foundation on the navigation side. So how the robots move, on the actual fleet management of how you're tracking the robots. And then there's a
Mhm.
whole plethora of data that these robots can collect as well. So data around operations, around the environment, things like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'll cut myself off there because I could go on for a while, but that's the way we see the future, and Rosie's our first step towards that future.
Oh, definitely. Well, I love the passion behind it. I love hearing about the vision and like what your goals are. That's super cool. And I think that's very
Thank you.
valuable. Definitely. And in the market of like robotics, like there are different, I know there's different companies popping up. How do your competitors compare with you and what sets you apart in the industry?
Yeah, totally. It's been interesting because we've been at this for about 8 years now, and it was pretty quiet at first, and then over the past, call it 3 to 5 years, things have picked up a bit. I'd say, in terms of competitors, we see a lot in the large cleaning space. So these are like mini Zambonis that are scrubbing or vacuuming or both, for much larger open spaces like a shopping mall or grocery store, retail centers, stuff like that. So that isn't a direct competitor, although they're kind of in a adjacent space. For the ones that are similar, more similar form factor to what we're doing, something that we've learned is the importance of versatility, both in the form factor and the size. So Rosie is smaller versus, some of these larger, even if they're medium sized units that can only clean certain areas. So the advantage is you have Rosie that can clean everywhere, whether it's a hotel guest room or a big open corridor, or an office space or whatever it might be. And then you can have multiple robots actually working together to clean those bigger spaces that may require more battery life and more debris space with the bag. So form factor is a big part of it. The software behind it, our robots are drop shippable. So they're really easy. They're literally ready to use out of the box, which for commercial robotics just isn't a thing today. So from a setup and ongoing use standpoint, it's super easy. It's even easier to set up than like consumer robots. And then the actual quality, the quality of the clean, the quality of the coverage, the reliability, and then data that we're capturing as well around what's going on in the environment and operations. All of those things are pretty different. And I'd say in some cases, years ahead of what we've seen in the industry today.
Hmm. For sure. That is super cool. I like the smaller size concept and like what you're building with that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I kind of like to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about you, what your inspiration was, and especially as a founder, as a CEO, what inspired you to like, if you ever did work a 9 to 5, or what inspired you to step into that role? I know you mentioned a little bit about growing up in an entrepreneurial family. So were you ever
Yeah.
in that 9 to 5 kind of space, or like what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I was blessed and maybe cursed in entrepreneurship from a young age. So just I didn't give the details, but I'll share my grandparents actually started a children's summer camp outside of New York City, where I basically grew up every summer. I would spend the summers at camp. I was kind of like a camper, a counselor in training, a counselor. And then actually, towards the end of high school, I ran the camp for a couple of summers with my sister. And that was a huge learning experience and exposure into kind of being on that side of the table, having a business, not necessarily starting it, but there were things we were restarting and rethinking about business model and branding and appeal. And that was a ton of fun. It was hard. I actually, at the age of 16, had to fire my first person, who was a counselor who was older than me. And that wasn't fun, but it taught me the things and got me kind of seeing what it's really like to run a business, which is not all glitz and glam. So that definitely exposed me. And then my mom is a serial entrepreneur. She's sold technology companies in the past. She's in hospitality as well, and a huge inspiration for me and my siblings and a lot of people out there. And I got to see that journey through some of the companies that she built. And again, not easy, but she was doing what she loved and what she kind of envisioned for the world and was building that and fell in love with it. So I think early on, I had businesses like I sold candy to friends in school. I did video editing services, so like videos for weddings and stuff like that. And then eventually started a smartphone app. And then when I was at Cornell, that was really the aha. So it felt not like a easy thing to do, but it felt like a natural thing, I'd say, for me to get into. And I had some kind of internships, but I wouldn't say I've ever really had that 9 to 5 you're asking about.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with that.
I think that's awesome. It's really cool to hear your journey, especially starting at such a young age and being inspired by your grandparents and like learning about business right away. So
Yeah,
very cool.
yeah,
Well, kind of going
yeah,
into, what is like something like a roadblock or a hurdle that you faced on it can be in your entrepreneurial journey as a whole or within the company that you're working on now. But what is something you faced, a challenge that that you overcame?
yeah. It's hard to pick one because it feels like every day there's something and it's a roller coaster. But yeah, I mean, I'd say a couple of the biggest things in terms of like challenges over the years for Talos, particularly, was fundraising, which I know is pretty relatable for a lot of people. It's very hard to sell a vision and convince people to give you hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, millions
Mm,
towards that, regardless of what you're building, regardless of background. It's just baseline hard. But
mhm,
I also was a college dropout. I had not started companies in the past. I did not, I did not work at big companies like at Google, for example, and have that on my resume. So So being able to convince people about this vision and that I was the right person for it has been a uphill battle, I'd say, over the years. And I think as the company has progressed and as we've built credibility in the market and with our numbers speaking for themselves, that helps a lot. But I'd say as part of that, one of the biggest hurdles is not just fundraising, but the resilience, the
Mhm.
perseverance to
Mhm.
continue even in the face of 100 no's or 200 no's or 300 no's, to like be crazy enough to say like, I'm going to keep going and I believe in this so much. And the reality is, even now, 8, 9 years later, I have never felt more strongly about this vision and I've never believed in it more. So it's been a journey, but I'd say that like mental battle and that navigating that space has been one of the biggest lessons learned or areas that I've kind of worked through over the years.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's definitely going to resonate with our listeners for sure. And kind of looking at the future of your company, you talked about this main vision, but what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for you?
Yeah, yeah, I love talking about the vision, as you know, and the future. So the next 3 to 5 years, we're flooding the world with Rosies, as I tell the team often. We're now in 12 countries. We want to be in dozens more. We just deployed into Korea and New Zealand recently, so there's a ton of opportunity in Asia. Europe is one that's growing quite quickly for us as well. And then, of course, there's a ton of kind of runway and breathing room in North America to get more robots out. So in 3 to 5 years, we're going to have tens of thousands of robots deployed. We're going to be
Mhm.
scaling up with the biggest brands in the industry. We're going to be releasing new products that are going to be, complementary to what we have, so different use cases, and continuing to build out that software platform for the swarm where the robots actually talk to each other. The data platform is going to be much more sophisticated, and we'll have this suite of robots that are able to do multiple tasks within a building. So that's how I see the next 3 to 5 years, and a lot of work to be done, but feel very confident we'll get there.
Oh, definitely. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. I love learning about your business and about what you're doing. And now I'd like to dive into a fun series of questions. It's 4 questions
Yeah,
called our rapid fire questions.
cool.
Yes. So
Do it.
answer top of mind answers. All right, let's rock and roll. Question number one is what is a piece of advice you would give to other business owners?
Yeah. Uh, Something that I say often is take care of yourself. Whatever
Mhm.
that is. I love to bike. I love to meditate. I love to be with friends or spend time with my wife and just vent to them too. So just making sure that if you're not at 100% or, taking care of yourself, then your business won't be either.
Very true. What is one key to success for you?
Somewhat in a similar way, I'd say community.
Mm,
Through Cornell, where I was, through my network and who I've met, and asking people who should I talk to, a big key to success has been who I've been able to connect with and get support from, whether it's like investors, advisors, mentors, even team members.
mhm.
All of that is why we are here and where we are today.
100%. What is one book or piece of content that you've taken in most recently?
Yeah. Well, I take this in kind of consistently. I read it a while ago initially, but I recommend Be Here Now. That book
Mm.
by Ram Dass is a really powerful and spiritual book. Not as directly correlated with business, but Steve Jobs actually would like carry it with him places too.
Wow.
And I highly recommend that. I love coming back to that and kind of helping ground myself.
Definitely. The final question is if you had to choose only one aspect of your business that you could wave a magic wand and have it going better the next day, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super focused on sales. It's going super well, but
Mm.
if I could put a magic wand and just sell 10 times what we're doing even, that'd be amazing. And it would make my life a little easier.
Oh, definitely. Well, Micah, this has been such a great conversation. Let's plug people into who you are. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Micah Green, and on LinkedIn, I'm Micah Estis Green. You can reach out there and feel free to message me as well. You can check out our website, Tailos.com, Tailos.com, and we're on LinkedIn as well, and would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Micah. And our final question for today is, what is most inspiring to you today?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, the I had actually, it was from last night, but somebody said they like to collect smiles. This is a person who's just at the front desk at one of my friend's apartment buildings. But I love that. I love collecting smiles and being able to make today even better than yesterday for others. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That makes me smile. That's so cool. I'm going to use that. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for your time. And thank you guys for tuning into this episode. If you want more episodes like this, be sure to like and subscribe to hear stories from people like Micah, who are in our community doing cool things. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks so much.